Hey there, this is Natalie, and there's been a lot of talk over the last 24 hours about these images of an adult Subaru, who seems to be dressed very much like Al. This is just going to be a quick video explaining what we know about these images and where they come from, and the theories people are already having about what, if anything, they could mean for the main story. Now, a lot of people have been saying these images come from a new Ifrit, and while that is actually true, it may not be what you're thinking. April the 1st is when Tappei has historically released Ifrit stories, on account of it being Subaru's birthday, as well as April Fool's Day, and that's in just a couple of days. But these images are not related to an announcement that there will be a new If side story for the web novel. In fact, those stories aren't normally announced at all. He just kinda drops them, and they also don't come with artwork, as is the case with all of the web novel. So while this Al-looking Subaru is from an If story that has been announced, it's an If story for the ReZero Lost in Memories mobile game by SEGA. Lost in Memories is only available in Japanese, so most Western fans haven't had a chance to play it, but it does include its own Ifrit scenarios, which are unlocked by decisions the player takes in the game. The writing for the game is overseen by Tappei Nagatsuki, and so while these Ifrits are not canon, they're also not likely to include anything that isn't compatible with the canon. This makes them basically the same as with the Ifrit stories we know, where the stories explore things that never actually happened, but the stuff we learn about the world and characters will still be consistent with the main story. That means that this Al-looking Subaru isn't an image from the future of the main story, but it also isn't something we can just write off as having no meaning, like a lot of the non-canon stuff that happens in mobile games, like the various crossovers between ReZero and other franchises. From what I've been able to find out from Twitter, this If story diverges from the main route in episode 15, where after Rem is killed by Petaljuice and tells Subaru to live on, he doesn't encounter Puck and die, but instead spends 20 years hunting down the witch cult, and we see him here aged around 38. Now, people have been complaining that this is just super unlikely, given Subaru already loves Emilia at this point in the story, and so wouldn't just not reset and spend his life living in a world where she and just about everybody else he knew was dead, just because Rem, who doesn't know he can return by death, and who is also dead herself, told him not to die. I completely agree with that, but I don't really think the starting points for Ifrits need to be completely in character for Subaru, where they're just excuses to explore different outcomes. Naturally, the most in-character things for him to do are what we see in the main story, where due to return by death, we already get to see him take different courses of action in each situation anyway. So where Ifrits start by him making a different decision he didn't make in any loop of the main story, it will often feel a bit unlikely. To me, it just has to be a decision that it was possible for him to take, and it's reasonable it will be one that doesn't seem like a great choice for him. The Ifrits are like alternate routes in a game, and this one literally is an alternate route in a game. So I don't think it's a big deal that it relies on Subaru doing something that doesn't entirely make sense for him to do. It definitely didn't make sense for my female courier in Fallout New Vegas to side with the Legion, but she still did. Awe Kaiser. But whether you like or hate the premise, that's what it is. And so that brings us to the question of, why does Subaru look like Al here? Is this actually revealing that Subaru is Al? Well, Subaru is wearing Al's outfit here, though he's not showing off that he has the abs of insanity like Al does, and he even seems to have a prosthetic arm, or at least some kind of gauntlet type thing, where Al is missing an arm. But Subaru here would be about the same age Al is in the current story, and there is official character reference art of Al without his helmet that someone got their hands on a couple of years ago and which has been shared around on Twitter and in other ReZero communities. As you can see from this, Al here, who would be the same age as Subaru in the If, doesn't really look anything like this drawing of Subaru. Now, it's certainly possible that the character design we see here for Al is just an old, out-of-date design. It has never been used as reference art for him because he's never been seen without his helmet, either in the anime or the light novels. But Al and Subaru turning out to be the same person would be quite the big plot point, so it doesn't seem likely that it's something Tappei wouldn't have decided on at the start, which would make it strange for any non-Subaru looking Al art to exist at all. Staying on the meta side of things, Tappei has always kept tight-lipped about Al. He said that there are 3 main mysteries in ReZero, and as yet we can't even identify what those are among all of the mysteries currently on the go. But he said that knowing Al's circumstances would tell us the answer to one of them. Al has always been important, even if it was completely undermined by the fact that the most important detail about him, that he's an isekai person who's been in the ReZero world for 18 years and has lost his memory, was cut from season 1, so a lot of anime-onlys still think he's just a minor character. For many of us though, we're hoping that Arc 7 is going to be the one to bring some answers about him. Now, if the answer to who Al is something involving him and Subaru being the same person, this answer that explains so much about ReZero, even connecting to one of the biggest mysteries in the series, and which Tappei has been so careful not to even hint at the answer to, then does it really seem likely that it would be made obvious by a non-canon if route in a spin-off mobile game before it was ever even alluded to in the main story? I can definitely see Lost in Memories including some interesting clues, but just not anything huge like that. So, given as you can tell, I'm not convinced that this means Subaru is Al at all, what else could it mean? Well, there are already hints that Al is connected to the witch cult, and it could be that what this story actually gives us is more clues about that. I could see it being something like that in this route, Subaru was closely tied to Al. Either they became good friends, taking on the witch cult together, or Al becomes Subaru's biggest enemy in this route, perhaps giving hints in regard to the very popular theory that Al is the Sin Archbishop of Pride. If Al then dies in this route, either killed by their enemies if they're allies here, or killed by Subaru if they're the enemies, Subaru may simply adopt a style of dress that reminds him of him. This is not at all far-fetched in terms of ReZero, because we've already seen this happen with another character, Roswaal. Before his defeat by Hector, Roswaal didn't dress like a clown or talk in his distinctive way, but both of these are reminiscent of Hector. There are certainly theories that Hector is in some way inside Roswaal now, but none of that is confirmed, and the reason we're given for now is that it's to remind Roswaal of that defeat and that enemy. Subaru is always being paralleled or contrasted to Roswaal in both the main story and the other if routes, and so for Subaru to do something similar, styling himself after his biggest enemy, would seem like something Tappei would do. We can also consider that if Al is indeed the Sin Archbishop of Pride and Subaru kills him, he would most likely get Al's witch factor, which could also affect him in ways we could be seeing here. Subaru may effectively be carrying a part of Al inside him, and if perhaps he didn't hate Al, then maybe Subaru doesn't resist his influence as much as with others. This could mean that we're seeing here a kind of hybrid between Subaru and Al, again in a similar way to how a lot of people speculate we have with Roswaal and Hector, which is something that would only occur in this if route, and therefore doesn't need to mean Subaru is Al in the main story. But those are just my thoughts on what this could mean, and why I don't think it really does suggest Subaru will be revealed to be Al in the main story. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, please subscribe if you're new to the channel for ReZero theories, analysis and discussion, as well as coverage of other anime, manga and light novel series, including the final chapter of Attack on Titan. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.